Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Ariely, end-of-life doula and founder of Comforting Closure. Welcome back. In today's episode, we're going to talk about adult daycare. These vital services provide support, activities, and care for older adults and individuals with disabilities in a safe, community-based setting. We have the privilege of being joined by Ann Peterson, a member of the Live Oak Adult Day Services team. Together with Ann, we're going to talk about the profound impact these services have, not only on those who receive care, but also on their families and the broader community. Ann, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. It's great.
Can you start off and tell us about yourself and how you came to Live Oak?
In college, I decided to study psych, so I'm a big psych person, and then I decided it wasn't quite enough, so I wanted to go into art therapy. So I wanted to bring the arts into it. So I went to a master's program in art therapy. And while I was there, I had two internships. One was with kids and one was with seniors. And the kids drove me crazy. But the seniors, I fell in love with working with seniors mostly because you get to hear their whole story, a lifetime of stories. And that really appealed to me. I loved listening to them. So then I realized that I would need a little bit more background in order to work with seniors who have a lot of cognitive impairments creeping in on them. And so I ended up getting a doctorate in clinical psych, specializing in geriatrics. And I worked in that for a while, nursing homes, hospitals, doing testing and looking for dementia and things like that. And then I took a break and spent some time raising my kids. And at one point, the kids at their school were doing a community service. And so I chaperoned a bunch of kids and we went to a Live Oak Center. And I went in and I just brought back all my memories of working with seniors. And I was like, oh, I need to do this again. And they were desperate for a director. And so I applied and got the job and I became their director of one of the adult day centers. That's how I started. And then a couple of years ago, our executive director retired. And so I stepped into her role.
Can you give us a brief overview of Live Oak Adult Day Services and the core mission that drives your work?
Sure. So Live Oak's mission is to provide adult daycare for seniors with cognitive impairment to enhance their lives and provide them structured activities to fill out their day. The other goal, sort of okay, he can knock that part out. Another goal is to provide support for the seniors' caregivers while they're in our program during the day. The caregivers get a break from caregiving. We also provide support for the caregivers too.
Now, is adult daycare only for adults with cognitive impairments, or do you have adults, seniors that are living in assisted living, just want to get out or have some social interaction?
Sure. So we take the definition broadly. We do take folks in who don't have cognitive impairment. Pretty much everybody that comes to our center is dependent on others for care. So even in assisted living, they get help, that kind of thing. But we'll get somebody who's sort of physically frail come to our centers, and they enjoy our centers because we have great activities, and it's not so difficult to get around. So if you compare our center to like a senior center in a community, at a senior center, a person would go in and they'd have to choose which class they're going to take. They have to find the way down the hallway. They have to figure out where their meals are. In our center, it's all in one spot. So we'll have folks who don't have cognitive impairment, but they appreciate the fact that they don't have to move so much and they can get all the same benefits, basically.
What are the typical age groups for the adults that attend your services?
We're supposed to take folks who are 60 years and older, okay? But we do take some folks who have early onset dementia. So we've had people as young as 56 coming in, but our average age is 87. So it's definitely an older group of folks.
Yeah, and I know that you had some, like, who is your oldest?
So I think the oldest currently is definitely over 100, but we had a big celebration for somebody who was 103. So that was great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through the services and activities that an adult day service facility usually offers, and how are they designed to meet the needs of those served?
So our day goes from 9 to 3. It's a little bit shorter than you might find elsewhere, but we feel like it's enough. It's enough activity for somebody, for our seniors. Anyway, so they come in around 9. We usually provide them a breakfast, a small continental breakfast. Then we'll do orientation or news and current events, that kind of thing. We always provide some kind of chair exercise every day. And then we'll have either an art session or a music session. And then we also have lots of games that we play, mostly for cognitive stimulation. So they'll get a lunch, and then before they leave, they get a little snack. And throughout the day, the biggest thing that's happening is that they're socializing. There's a lot of socializing. So why do we structure it that way? Why do we choose these events? So the chair exercise is totally necessary for these folks. So we need them to move and get themselves physically more fit than they've been. It helps with balance. It helps with getting themselves around. We provide the meals, a lot of food, because sometimes what happens with somebody who has dementia is they'll forget that they've eaten, or they'll not want to eat. They don't, the whole eating thing is just not what they want to be doing. But when you put them in a group, it's almost like little kids at school. They will see what everybody else is doing and they'll do what the other folks are doing. So we definitely get them some really good nutrition at the program. Lots of times better than they have at home. Music is a big part of our lives at the program, because no matter what kind of dementia or cognitive impairment you have, music has always been a part of your life. So it will, whatever neurons or neural pathways are deteriorating, there's always another one that was connected with music from an early age. So everybody responds really well to music. Artwork is great, especially for those who are nonverbal. Those folks who can't really tell you what they're feeling or thinking, and also it gives them a sense of agency, like this is something they can still do. So I love doing the artwork with them. And then the cognitive stimulation, constantly we're trying to do word games, visual games, memory games. Not that we're going to bring any skills back, but we're trying to preserve what's already there. And then the socialization with the staff, and then we encourage it through other clients who are there each day. They make friendships, they make jokes, they sit around. Some of the centers, all the guys sit together, all the ladies sit together. Other ones, they mix it up. Sometimes there's a little romance, little things come up. It's really, it's a lovely, lovely space for them to share their lives.
How do you make sure that the services are accessible and inclusive to all individuals? Because I know that you help people with limited financial resources. And there are all different, especially in this area, all different cultures and all different languages.
Right. So Live Oak it's been around for 40 years. So we have 4 centers, 40 years, and we've always had a mandate to try to accept anybody who needs a service or who can benefit from the service. So we're lucky in the sense that we don't depend solely on what the clients can pay. So we are able to take folks in, and we have a recommended contribution, recommended amount of contribution on a sliding scale. And we take folks in who pay nothing. We take folks in who pay $25 a day, and then it goes up to like over 100 a day, depending on what they can contribute. So that is great. Other daycares need to be, they need to set their rates a little bit higher because they're not quite as dependent, or not, they can't depend as much on outside funding sources. So in terms of meeting the huge diversity in this area, it gets a little tricky, but what we do is probably every center has at least a Spanish-speaking person, a staff person. We have several other languages that staff speak. We try to bring in volunteers who speak other languages. Sometimes when somebody starts to have dementia, they'll revert to their original language and lose, if they were an immigrant, they might lose their English to the, so it's a little tricky trying to meet those needs. We also, dementia doesn't discriminate, so we get everybody. And so a lot of what we try to do is, there's a large part of the day that doesn't depend solely on English. So there's a lot of nonverbal communication. There's a lot of nonverbal games. And for the most part, we're pretty good at engaging everybody. It's occasionally we'll get somebody whose language really prevents them from participating, and we'll try and find them another spot.
You talked about respite care and helping families.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do other things with the families? I understand respite care, by having their loved one in, at the daycare, they are getting a break. But do you do other things or offer other support for the family members?
Sure. So one of the things that has become very, very big for us is the caregiver support groups. So at the end of COVID, we had been doing some remote services during COVID, but we started doing 2 remote caregiver support groups per month. And those have ballooned into being large groups each month. And then recently we've collaborated with the Alzheimer's Association to add an in-person group to our center. So now we run 3 caregiver support groups, and hearing those stories really is profound and really, gives us the impetus to keep doing what we're doing. The other things we do with the families, though, is there's so many hard things the families need to deal with. And we've dealt with all of them pretty much. So we give them a lot of individual support, emotional support. We can make lots of referrals. And then the hardest thing we have to do is when their senior can no longer attend our center. if they've deteriorated, if the dementia has increased to a certain level, we have to refer them out, which is painful but necessary.
Yeah, that does sound very heartbreaking, very
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, it's when we try to keep them as long as we can, but there are times when, well, one of the things that really determines whether they're going to be able to stay home or move to assisted living or memory care is how much they're staying awake at night, or making life very difficult for the caregiver so that the caregiver can no longer cope at home. So when we see behaviors at Live Oak that are difficult for us to manage, we can only imagine what the caregiver's living with. And that's when we start to talk to them about either 24-hour care or memory care or something that they can afford that would give them more of a break.
So do you partner with memory care or with assisted living facilities and with doctors and kind of come up with a holistic plan? Is that too idealistic?
No, it's not at all. So, assisted living is for profit, right?
Yeah.
Assisted living and memory care. Memory care is a part of assisted living for the most part. Some facilities are only memory care. Memory care would be generally a locked facility and a place for folks who have severe dementia. But the thing with those businesses is, they solicit us all the time because they're always, looking for new referrals or whatever, although some of them are very full these days. So what we try to do is go out and visit the centers, a lot of the centers, so that we can see and know which ones we like to refer clients to. In terms of medical docs and stuff, there's some doctors know us, some of the geriatricians know us. And so from Kaiser or, El Camino or whatever, they'll know that we're an option. But unfortunately, too many of them don't know we're an option. And we're constantly working at that. We also get referrals from the VA, Veterans Administration, and they have some very knowledgeable social workers who are we're in touch with a lot.
Very nice. Yeah, I think that a lot of times doctors, they're there to cure people. And so it makes it very difficult when they have to have those tough discussions of
Yeah.
what are some of the other challenges that you face, and conversely, what are some of the most rewarding aspects of your work?
The biggest and most difficult and heartbreaking challenge is when somebody needs to move on, when their dementia has increased to a point that we can no longer manage them. That's the hardest. It's the hardest for our staff, it's hardest for the family, and it's hardest for the person coming to our center. Other challenges that we face, funding is always a challenge. Looking for new grants, applying for grants, looking to foundations. The county has been very helpful. The state has been very helpful. When you're in a grant with somebody, you have to have great reporting back to them to let them know that you're actually doing what you said you were going to do. So we have to be really careful which grants we accept. The other challenges, staffing has been a huge challenge since COVID. That was really tough, keeping people working and happy at the job, things like that. We, because we're such we try to keep costs low. Our salaries are not necessarily higher than anybody else's. They're comparable, sometimes lower, so it's a little tricky. So those are kind of the challenges that we face. Oh, you want me to talk
Your
about the
favorite parts. Yeah.
rewarding
What are
part?
what are some of the things that bring you
Oh,
joy at work?
oh, the rewarding part is, and everybody says this, once they join us and become staff, all that, the best part is that you go home every day feeling like you did something great, that you improved somebody's life. You had a happy day generally, and you can feel great about what you did. I think that's the most rewarding thing. The other things that are just really heartwarming are the stories that the caregivers come back with, that, this saved our lives kind of stories. Yeah. That's really, really rewarding.
Yeah, I can tell you, I did visit your San Jose office
Yeah,
or
yeah.
facility, which is absolutely gorgeous. The houses or the building is gorgeous. It is has a lot of history to it.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
really lucky to be there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But everyone that worked there seems so happy and so
Yeah,
involved with the people who were participating, who were your clients, and everyone looked happy.
yeah, yeah. So that's always been uh my focus is, you know, these folks have dementia and they don't need to be worried about things out in the world. So I want every day to be a joyful day. And everything is, you know, it's great. It's great. You go home, you feel great. And hopefully they do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what Okay, so we talked about doctors, we talked about uh, the assisted living. Do you work with other people in the community to help create a more holistic support system?
So yeah, we pride ourselves on a referral system of making referrals for families for as many, we try to be there for whatever questions they might have. So we have connections in the community to the Alzheimer's Association if somebody really needs more information about what's going on with their loved one. We have we have little contracts with a couple of different organizations. Unlock is a complete senior care program that works with us when they need a daycare. Um, we work with VTA, the access, so that families and their loved ones can get transportation to our center and wherever else they need. So we'll help them sign up for that. We connect them with mental health needs. We can connect them to uh, legal services. Um, and then we can connect somebody to the VA if they're not connected and they're a vet. So we try to make sure that we have enough information for folks for whatever they might need.
Are there any misconceptions about adult day services that you'd like to address?
Yeah,
You're like, how much time do we have?
I know, that's right. It's I think when people would walk into a setting that has 15 87-year-olds, right? You may have a misconception about what's happening. All right. So you may think it's just babysitting or trying to just keep people safe, which we do keep people safe, but there's a lot of activities going on, things that we're trying to achieve with them, trying to keep them um, at their same level of cognitive abilities. Um, Everything's slower, so it's not like totally like a kid's. You're not going into a room full of kids, and so there's misconceptions about what's actually going on and whether it's valuable or not. It may not look that valuable to somebody. Um, so that is a misconception that we try to change. Um, there's a misconception about how much somebody can do, especially if they're not talking. if they have lost a lot of their verbal abilities. So, we'll get volunteers who come in and they'll be nervous to talk to somebody who can't really respond back to them. But the fact that you're sitting with them and sharing emotions with them is hugely important for them. And so those kinds of things are subtle and not easily seen sometimes. Those are where the misconceptions come from, I think.
Yeah, it's unfortunate in our society that we feel like we need to fill up space with words, and
Right.
we don't realize that just sitting next to a person and being with a person is sometimes all that is needed and is such a
Right.
great help.
Yeah. It's yeah. Yeah, those are really wonderful moments. And those are the moments that, make you realize you're doing great work. And yeah.
Now, with advancements in technology and shifts in attitude towards aging and care, what innovations or trends do you see shaping the future of adult day services?
Yeah, this is pretty funny. So we kind of got thrown into it during COVID. So uh the only thing we had, well, one of the we had a core group of people that would come into work every day. We came into work, the day after the shutdown. Um, the clients obviously were not there, but somebody brought their daughter in from high school, right? And she said, "Well, why don't you guys just do a Zoom program with them?" And we're like, "Well, why not?" So we did. So we started up a Zoom program 2 hours a day because we figured they couldn't sit that much longer than that. And we did a lot of the same activities via Zoom. We kept that going. It's still going. It's very small now, but once we were in person, people wanted to come back in person. And a big part of what we do, the respite that we provide, is that we can get the senior out of the home so that the other family members can be home and doing whatever they need to do. So we brought them back. So the Zoom program isn't that effective. We do lots of bringing lots of travel guides, music, lots of things via computer for them. And it's wonderful. You can bring back I Love Lucy. You can bring back the the what was it? The Bay Bomber roller skaters, any kind of reminiscence that you want, you can bring it back really quickly. And that's really an important thing with technology. So that's been great. The thing that's interesting is, we all know about technology and we got our cell phones and everything, but the seniors that we see now, the 87-year-olds, did not grow up with that. And so what we do now is mostly tailored a little bit for them. But some of the younger ones coming in are bringing their cell phones. They want to talk to people. Sometimes we can't get them off their cell phones during the program, and that's a whole nother generation, really. And so we're seeing new things. The most amazing thing I saw was someone's mother had a cell phone and she had dementia and she was angry at her daughter. And she was so forgetful that the messages that she would write, she thought the daughter was writing. And so she was having an argument with herself on a cell phone. And so, that, you kind of need to take a step back and see, where is this effective and what can we actually do with this? Anyway, I foresee, seeing the younger people coming in, I foresee that it's going to be a much bigger thing. The cell phones, the computers, the definitely using computers for reminiscence. It's all, it all can be used well, but it's going to be tricky.
That one that you just mentioned where she was having a cell phone conversation with herself, that must have escalated very quickly.
The daughter was shocked. She wasn't sure what to do with that. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That is pretty
I
amazing.
I was sort of thrilled with that just to see, wow, this is what's going to happen. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
what advice would you give families that are considering adult day services for their loved ones? What should they be looking for in a quality provider?
Right. So, unfortunately, there aren't that many programs out there. So, um, you're going to look around. Well, what we find is that dementia progresses. So early on in dementia, you're going to have a time when you're at home with your loved one, and the loved one can't be left alone, but they're still able to do a lot. And you don't, you may not want to start assisted living or memory care. Mostly for financial reasons, but also because a lot of folks want to try to age in place at home. So you'll be keeping them home, and you realize they're just watching TV. And so my advice to people is, as soon as you start to see them lose interest in what they used to do, or lose the ability to do what they used to do, you might consider daycare, because it's a stepping stone, and they can come to us, socialization, they'll receive socialization, uh, lots of activity, and it could help them sustain their abilities a little bit longer. Now, what should you look for? It depends, but I really think that the feeling that there's a happy feeling where you're at, that people are interacting, and that it shouldn't be overwhelming or overstimulating. I really think that if you have stuff all over the walls, and lots of jarring colors and lots of equipment around, it's not a good thing. You're trying to structure and simplify their world, because they're going to get scared. They'll be scared. It's difficult for them to go out in the big world. So you want to find a center that's happy and simple, really. I think that's probably the two main things.
Yeah, the most important part is the socialization
Sure,
aspect,
sure.
because there's been
Yeah,
so many studies that show that the socialization is so good for people as they get older, for their brains.
right. Right. The whole thing about being isolated during COVID, and now, it's just showing that it's just makes deterioration come on so much faster, right? Yeah. So yeah, yeah. When they come in and have friends at our center, that, and every day they want to go there. And on Saturdays when we're not open, they're like, oh, darn, that kind of thing. So it is important.
And I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure.
Before we wrap up, could you share with our listeners how they can learn more about Live Oak and how they can get a hold of you or your team?
Sure. So we have a great website, www.liveoakadultdaycare.org. And then our phone number, just give us a call.
Okay, great. I'll put that down so people could see
Yeah, that'd be
that.
great. Yeah.
Folks, we've had a wonderful conversation today about the essential role of adult day services in providing care, support, and enrichment to older adults and individuals with special needs. Adult day services offer a valuable resource for both older adults and the people taking care of them. For those considering such services, we want to emphasize that there's no shame in seeking this type of care. In fact, it demonstrates a commitment to the continued health and happiness of yourself and your loved one. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please comment below or reach out to me directly. And if you found this conversation to be helpful, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Tracy Ariely from Comfort Enclosure, wishing you peace and comfort in your journey. Until next time, take care.